everyone hear me okay? Okay, yep, you can. I see the chat is not open. So yes, thank you very much for putting that you can hear me, and we will get started. So today, our agenda is we're going to talk about sign up and basics, which means basic settings for meetings and webinars. Talk about difference between meetings and webinars. Then I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks, and then we will do Q&A. If there's a slide that you have a question, you don't write it down so you can remember it, go ahead and type it in to the piece. I do not see any of you. This is not a meeting, this is a webinar. So you see me and you see my slides. You see my slides, correct? And then I will answer questions in the question and answer box at the end. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is the different type of plans that you can have. Okay, if you are not a business, if it's a personal plan, you can do it for free. Zoom was built for the business and enterprise structures, but then they decided to offer the Pro for $14.99 for small businesses and the free version for individual people. You get the same thing on free and Pro, except with Pro, you can update to webinars and other things. You can also do more participants by paying for another feature. With free, you just get the 40 minutes to 100 participants. And free works great, absolutely great, if that's what you're doing. And free is for meetings, not webinars. Webinars is a piece you have to add on, and you have to have Pro. So if you have Pro, $14.99 a month, you can have all the meetings you want, up to 100 participants, and you can record them, you can have reporting, you can have people register, you can do all those things. If you want to do a webinar like we're doing today, where I am speaking to everyone, and they are learning, and we're doing Q&A at the end, webinars are a feature that you have to pay for, so you have to purchase the Pro. So, and the business, it looks here, it says $14.99. Yeah. And then it says $19.99 for a small business, and you think, wow, for $5 more a month, I can get all these extra features, but it says minimum of 10 hosts, and you pay per host, so it's much more expensive than $199. It's actually $190 a month. So know which plan that you want to use. Now, if you are a nonprofit, you can go to TechSoup, and you get, for $65 a year, you can get the Pro plan. So the regular pricing is $19.99 a month, and which is $239 a year. And if you add webinars, it's $480 a year. So you get it for a fraction of the price. If you are TechSoup, go to TechSoup, register, use your 5013C number, and then you can put this in and get a more of a discount on your Zoom meetings. This is the description. You get the Pro version. You get a 50% discount on any of the hosts you add, and you get a 50% discount on any add-ins that you want. So it's a great thing for nonprofits. So the very first thing is you need to sign up. And the very first security thing I'm going to tell you is never use Google or Facebook to sign into any other platform, including Zoom. Yeah, it's great because if you're signed into one, you're just in. The downside is once those nefarious players get your sign-in, they just start hitting every service with the username and password until they get in. So you never want to do that. So we're going to go through settings and your profile first. So first, these are your basic settings. It's right here when you sign in online. It's on the left-hand side. It says settings. And I'm going to talk about very basic. When I start a meeting, I always start it with the host on and the video on, both of them, if it's a meeting and you want them to be able to be seen and heard. Because otherwise you spend a good 5-10 minutes with someone who doesn't know how to turn it on. So you want it turned on when they come in the room and just start there. So that's one of the very basic settings I do. If you put in your settings every time you create a meeting, then they're just on. The other basic settings that we're going to talk about are, first ones are the host video is on, the participants video is on. You can have both types of audio, both video on a desktop, a tablet, or on your phone. So if someone calls in from the phone, they can hear you. You should always require a password when you're scheduling a meeting. For security, you've all heard about Zoom bombing, and because it was open before, it was a problem. I also require a password for instant meetings. I just don't need someone coming on, because what the nefarious players will do is they'll just start running a string of numbers online until they get one that they can get into that doesn't have a password, and they join your meeting. What you can do is when you set it up, in your setting is check a box that says embed password and meeting link, which is great. So if you know who you're inviting and you're emailing them the password directly, when they click on it, they get in automatically. Now you guys were required to sign up for the meeting. After you signed up, that's when the link was sent to you, and the link had the password encrypted in it. So therefore, you didn't have to do anything, it was all set. Never publish the link with the embedded password on the internet, or you could get anyone to hop on. We want allowing participants to send a message back and forth, and we want to allow participants one-to-one chat in meetings so they can have a conversation. So let's look at our profile page. So this is your profile online. It has your name. There's a generic cutout behind here. You can upload your pictures so that if you're in a room and you don't want your video on, it shows your photo. It has your personal meeting ID, that if you want to set up a reoccurring meeting with your personal ID, it's always there. I don't like to share my personal ID, so I have it put a new one in each time. It tells what kind of it tells your email, it tells what kind of account you have, and it tells the capacity. So this is down further on your profile page. You can decide what language you're going to use, if it's different than English. You can decide, you have to set your time zone. You also can set your time format. This goes both ways. If you like a 24-hour time piece, which I do, that's what I set it at. But if you make a mistake and put 5 a.m. instead of 5 p.m., that's problematic. So you can use military time, so you have the choice of how that looks. You can integrate it with a calendar, either Outlook, Google, or Exchange to sync. I don't have my contacts and calendar synced. I use my Outlook calendar, and there's a Zoom plugin, so I use it that way. Your sign-in password, your host key, and if you want to be signed in and out of all devices when you sign out. So first, we're going to talk about meetings. Meetings are designed to be collaborative, and if you look at the screen, you can see everyone, you can talk to everyone. It's an interactive piece that's collaborative, and that's what we're talking about first. So on again your page, right under profile, it says meetings. When you click meetings, it'll show all the meetings you have scheduled. And you can schedule a meeting. You can also look at your previous meetings if you have a personal meeting room, and if you've set up a template so you can just copy it or not. So the first thing we're going to do is click the button that says Start a Meeting. And it pops up. These two boxes here are important in terms of this is the information it pulls in if you require registration. You need to put your title in, and you need to put a description in, so that when people get that registration, they know the title and they can read what you're doing in that meeting. So those are important to fill in. Then of course you have the date and the time. Of course mine shows 24 hours, not military. How long it is, I would say you should always give yourself extra time, because if you go over, it's not an issue. I don't think they ever cut you off, but you should put the duration in there. If you're having a regular reoccurring meeting, so I have a meeting every Monday with my staff, and it's set up ahead of time, we do them a month ahead of time in case something changes, then it's always there. If you're requiring registration, you would check this here. So then right up here at the top, it says meeting ID. I never, again, use my personal meeting ID. I might have used it on my reoccurring one. I like it to generate a new one because no one really needs to know that. Always, now Zoom updated its security settings in April after all of the security issues came to light. Now those security issues came to light in the Pro and the free version because those were added after. All their work went into the enterprise and business. So when you require a meeting password, it checks this by default now, and you have to put in your password. And it can be anything, just so there's a password. So the host video, this one when I took the screenshot wasn't set correctly, should always be on if you're having a meeting. So again, you don't have to start that and work with them. The audio is always both because you want someone who wants to call in to be able to do that. So there's some meeting options here. Enable join before host. So if you want them to join the meeting before you get there, you can. Sometimes you don't want to do that. The security list that Zoom set out says that you should not. It means that you just have to be on time and open it up 10 or 15 minutes early in case people want to test to get on. They certainly have that right because everyone wants to not get on and be late. So leave it there for them to join. You can mute participants on entry depending on what type of meeting you're having, or if it's webinar, you're already muted anyway. But do you want them to be able to talk right away, or do you want the ability to open it up to talking later? You can put people in a waiting room so that they're just waiting in a spot, and you when you start the meeting, you admit them all. Only authenticated users can join. That can be a problem if you're doing meetings or webinars that you're inviting a bunch of people you don't know to. Because being an authenticated user means that everyone who joins your webinar needs to have a Zoom account. Now, if you're in a closed group and everyone has Zoom account, that will certainly be another security level that only those people can join. And record the meeting automatically. So if you want it to be recorded, you can check it here every meeting now. These settings are global. Once you've set them, when you create a new meeting, they all pull in. An alternate host means you have to have a second license and that person can host for you instead. So once you've scheduled that meeting, it comes back here and shows up in your list right here, and you click on the topic. I've grayed mine out, but you click on the topic name and you can go back in and look at that item. So when you go in, it's going to tell you the topic. If you put in a description, it would be right up here at the top. This was just a sample to show everyone. You can add it to your Google Calendar, your Outlook calendar, or your Yahoo calendar, whatever you use. I use Outlook, and I always add them if I'm scheduling from here. I do a lot of scheduling for one-on-one meetings directly from my Outlook calendar, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Oops, sorry. Down here, the meeting password, I just put in dogs, just so it's something different. And you can see here's the URL. Up to before the question mark is the actual get on. Where the password is it is in this code here. I should quit using in the code here so that you can copy the invitation and actually send it to people right out of this spot. And then it shows you what your settings are for your host video, what your audio is, and what you've set for your meeting pieces. It also shows you, because in the back I had said I like to stream to Facebook and YouTube. I am not doing that today, but I can do that. Now, if you see something wrong here, you can edit this meeting and make changes. This is my Outlook calendar. Up here where the red arrow is, you can see that I have put in the add-in for Zoom. I can schedule a meeting or start an instant meeting. I don't use the start an instant meeting a lot unless I'm talking to someone and we want to hop on. I can schedule a meeting right from here. It opens up Outlook just like when you're scheduling a meeting, and it puts all the meeting information in the body. So when you invite people to it, it sends them the invitation information right away. This is what it looks like. So it pops up, shows the title. In the required is where you put the invitation information for who you want to send this email out to. It drops the location for Zoom. Under location, it tells you the time, and you can change it right here. And then it puts all the information in the body of the email that it's sending to them for them to join by clicking, what the meeting ID and password is, or if they want to dial in. Takes care of all of it right from your Outlook calendar. Now we're moving to webinars. So webinar is slightly different. Webinar is designed so that the host and panelists are there. If there was someone sharing this with me, they could also talk if I made them a panelist. The video, audio, and screen, I'm sharing my screen so you can see the presentation. And then you can have the Q&A, the chat, and you can do polls, none of which the Q&A I've done today. So when you're doing a webinar, same thing, right on the left, you can see profile, meetings, webinars, recording settings. You're going to webinars. Same thing, it shows all the ones you have scheduled. You click schedule a webinar, and it pops up. Again, if you're going to require registration, you want to make sure that the topic is filled in and that you've got a complete description so they see that when they go to the page to register. Date and time, the duration, the time zone is what your default is, and if it's a reoccurring webinar. Required password. So I like to require registration for webinars to know how many people are going to come, to capture their email addresses, and those kind of things. Again, the password is required. The host of the panelist video is on, even though the attendees video is not on. People can come in and both telephone and computer audio, so they can do it both ways. I have enabled the Q&A for this one, and then I click schedule. Once you click schedule, it appears in your list. Same thing, click on the title where the blue bar is, and you can go back in and see everything that you've put in and make edits and add it to your calendar. Here it shows the host video is on, what the audio is, what the webinar is. Now, here's where you can edit the webinar if you need to make a change. But in a webinar, there's some pieces down at the bottom. Invitations, email settings, branding, polls, Q&A, integration, and live streaming. So for this particular webinar, there was no registration. It was set up to 100 attendees, and this was the link to join. I can copy the invitation. I had invited a panelist to be part of this. So if they were here, they would be able to do that. Under email settings, for this particular one, you can go in and change the text, send the registration email to you in a preview so you can see it, and you can edit the text of everything here. You can also edit if you have a co-host or a panelist and you want to change the contact email for this individual webinar, you can do it here. Then we go to the branding one. These are the three that we're doing today in basics. For that page that you send people to, for your webinar, you can put a banner and you can upload your logo. So it's branded as yours. It's not just a generic piece. that Zoom puts out, but it has any information you want. So each one, you can set these settings in the back globally, so it always is the same. But on an individual one, if I'm working with another client or we're doing it in conjunction, I can put up a banner that shows both people who are participating, who are sponsoring it, and I can put up my logo. The other thing that I find is really cool down here where it says post attendee URL. If you don't change this, Zoom is sending them right back to their website, and that's where they're going to go. They're going to end up on Zoom's website for Zoom to promote something. You should change this so you send them to the landing page of your choice on your website, thanking them for participating in the Zoom meeting, and that you're now taking those attendees and taking them right back to your website so they can poke around. We're doing polls, Q&A, integration, and live streaming in the advanced, so we're not doing it in this one. So I'm going to pause here for a minute before I get to tips and tricks and see if there are any questions that any of you have on the beginning items that I said. So if you want to take a minute and type in some questions, that would be great. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. How many of you already are signed up for Zoom? Okay, so the first one is the hand available, raising available in the meeting? No. In a meeting, there is no hand raising, you just have the chat feature. I also have one from Terry who says, I don't understand what the banner is. Is it a background while on camera? No, that's called a virtual background, which I will show you towards the end. A banner is on a website where you put a logo at the top of your website. It's called a banner. So it would be on the registration page at the top of it, like your company name or who's sponsoring it or something like that. Kathleen is already signed up. Do you need a pro version to be a panelist? No, you do not need a pro version to be a panelist. You need to be invited by the person who is hosting to be a panelist. Or in the middle of, you can elevate people to become a panelist during your meeting, which is something that I show in the advanced Zoom piece. Okay, Tamara says, thank you. Are you going to go over the advanced class about what happens when someone signs in and loud beeping sounds coming from the phone, etc.? I have that happen a few times these past weeks. I don't know how to tell them to make it stop. I am not 100% sure about that. So it's always on a phone call. So it's not clear, Tamara. I don't know if they have their computer on and they're trying to do the audio. We can talk later about that particular piece, but I appreciate you asking the question. Is there any other questions I can answer so far? If we are only going to use Zoom for social connection, do we need to attend the next Zoom class for more detail? No, if you feel comfortable getting on, know how to mute and unmute yourself, understand etiquette, you're fine. And advanced goes into if you're hosting a meeting, if you're hosting a webinar, some of the different pieces that you can do and some of the extra functionality that you have. Okay, the next one is I had originally had Zoom loaded on my PC while I was trying to join a meeting, and like your webinar, it wouldn't launch the meeting. Just said launching, and it seems that it was hung up. So yeah, uninstalling and reinstalling, you know, it's so hard right now to give an answer to that because I think we all have experienced latency on our internet connections. just in general, no matter what we're doing, because the whole system is really overloaded. Zoom went from, I don't know if I mentioned this, 10 million users to 200 million users. Though I haven't seen any problems in any of the items that I've done, that doesn't mean that there hasn't been some problem getting on. So I would reinstall it and try again. I'm sorry you had problems, but it looks like, Daniel, you're on. So after you uninstalled and reinstalled, you were able to get on? That's my question to you. Okay, continue typing questions in. I'm going to go on to tips and tricks. So my very first tip and trick is lighting, sound, and setting. These are very important. You need to test, test, test. And this is where if you've installed the Outlook app or you're using the desktop app and you can start a instant meeting, you can open it up and you can see yourself. Are you that person that's a black figure because the light is behind you? Is it a problem with people sounding? You should ask someone to test with you, because you can talk, but you don't know what you sound like. So someone needs to come on and listen to see what's going on. And what do you want your setting to look like? So I'm going to take a minute and stop my share. So you can see here, I have a virtual background. So my lighting, if I sit correctly, get my glasses straight, I have a virtual background, and I have lighting off to the side so that it's not from behind me, even though it looks like there's all this light coming in the windows. I have a couple different virtual backgrounds. I'll share a couple. This is the other office background that I use. I also, when I do networking, we did a happy hour for networking, so I've been using this empty bar one. So you can set your background to whatever you want, and you have a virtual background. I'm sharing my screen again. So setting is very important. Once you've done one, you might want to record it so that you can look at it and decide how you want to look professionally. I mean, if it's just for family and stuff like that, you still want to be seen. The best light you can use is natural light. So if you can be by a big bright window, that's great. But it's something you want to do. Excuse me, I have the hiccups. So here, there's a touch up my appearance for those people. Like, I have two laptops and two webcam on each of them. I didn't like my webcam. I felt it wasn't high def enough, and you could always see, in a green screen, you could always see the green around the edges of my blonde hair. So I went and bought, for under $70, a great HD Logitech camera that also has sound. And when I start Zoom, in your settings next to your video, you can choose that. And the audio and the video are now great. So I don't need to give myself soft focus. That's certainly up to you. Now we're back to that virtual background. Any of you can do it. You have to have a high def picture. It has to be a high resolution picture, or it really starts to get a little blurry. You have to have, for your virtual backgrounds, I didn't show you, which I will do now. If I turn off my virtual background and say none, there you see it. It's my green screen. I have a green screen directly behind me, and so that when I choose a virtual background, it knows exactly what to do and puts it in correctly. You do that. So if you have a very cluttered wall behind you, it's not going to work, because it won't know. You've all seen the person who, when they move, their whole body repixelates, because the camera and the software cannot differentiate between what's supposed to be covered up and what's not. You have to have a solid wall behind you, a solid color. Now, I could not wear the color green, or that would be problematic too, because it would wipe that out also. So you need to have, you could use a solid blue sheet. You could use a solid green sheet. You can buy a green screen like I did. Originally, I had my green screen over my closet, and I would move everything, and that got to be too much of a deal. So I bought one of those curtain rods you can put just a wire on the ceiling, and my green screen then just slides over to my side wall when I'm not using it. And someone's asked here how we sent a virtual background as a participant, the same way I did. It's in your video settings where you can choose the virtual background. You have to remember what's behind you though, so that you can make sure it's working correctly. So one of the things that we've heard a lot about is Zoom bombing. And Zoom bombing is when someone gets your password or there's no password set and they jump onto your conference and they can do whatever they want until you kick them out. So there's a way to kick them out. Also, some people had people writing on the screen. For webinars, there's a annotation piece so that I can draw on the screen, or I can type text on the screen to show you something more specific, and then I can erase those things. This you can share, so if you're in a meeting where it's collaborative and you want people to be able to write things on the screens as you're working on them, that's great, but you need to be careful, because if you share annotations with everyone and someone jumps on, that's how they were writing things on screen. So it's a matter of just being security conscious, using that password, and only giving it to those people you want in the meeting. So there's also, you should on your toolbar have a place where you have more, and you can put thumbs up or claps or emojis that you want to put on the screen to share that you like what they're saying or you agree with it. So I can let there be feedback that way, not just in the question and answer screen. And I have the ability to mute everyone. And you as a host also do. So if you're doing a Mac, this is the keyboard shortcut, and if you're doing a PC, you can do it. So if you don't have someone who is co-hosting, you can immediately mute everyone in a meeting. So on the Zoom support, and these are all the PC shortcuts. I'm sorry there's no Mac ones on here, but there's a bunch of different things that you can do when you're in a meeting that are shortcuts. We already talked about Alt-M, which mutes everyone or unmutes everyone. You can take a picture of the screen. Where is the picture? I can just go down these. You can switch active speaker in the view to a video meeting. You can switch to the gallery view, which is up in your right-hand corner when you're in a meeting. If you're muted, you can hit the space bar, and that also unmutes you. You can start and stop screen sharing with Alt-Shift-F. I don't like 3 combinations. I have one hand on my mouse and the other hand can't hit 3. I'm just not that coordinated. You can start and stop the local recording. You can pause or resume the recording. You can hide the meeting chat panel or unhide it. You can open an invite window. When you're in a meeting, if someone says, oh, I want so-and-so come, you can open an invite window and send an instant invite to that email address. You can raise or lower your hand if that's available in your meeting. To take a screenshot, so if you wanted to take a screenshot of this, you could hit Alt-Shift-T, and it would give you a screenshot of what's on the screen during the meet. Someone said, I don't see the toolbar. If you're on a PC, if you roll down to the bottom, the toolbar pops up and it shows your mute, your video. Let me see, I have a different view. It says video, mute, audio, video, participants Q&A, the same place where you're doing Q&A, clicking on that Q&A for the answer, and other things are on that bar. When you slide away from it, it hides. You can set yours in your settings to always be visible. So now we're going to go to more Q&A. This is really just the basics. This was absolutely basics, how to get on, how to manage, how to do things for webinars. And the advanced class, which I'm giving on 416 and on 423, goes much deeper into these items and is a little bit longer webinar. So Tamara says she has no webinar bar now, but had one before on other meetings. If you roll down to the bottom, it doesn't pop up. It's a self-hide type bar, so you have to roll over where it was, and it pops back up. On the PC, it's on the bottom. I believe on the Mac, it's on the top, but I can't say for sure. Did you find it, Tamara? So you guys still don't see it either. Is it at the top of yours? You don't see the toolbar. You have to have a toolbar. Where did you start your audio and video? When I share my screen, it moves to the top. When I don't share my screen, it is at the bottom of my screen when I roll over. When I go down and hold it down, then it comes up. Are you able to start and stop your audio? Do you see where that is? That is correct, Kathleen. The audio is at the bottom and Q&A is in the middle. That is the toolbar. That black piece that pops up is what comes up. And the far right-hand side, I think there's a more, and there's some options under there. So Doug asked, does a green screen need to be green or just a solid color? It really needs to be a solid color that the camera can remove. You need to have it be an off color. All white is probably not good because then there's just light and darks that it doesn't do correctly. And when the light, whatever lighting you're using, sometimes gives shadows. So you need to make sure it's not, that doesn't have any ripples in it, because it will cause it to give you that funny effect. But yes, you can use any color you can try. So I'd go to the closet and see what you have and hang it up and then test it. Start an instant Zoom meeting and see if it gives you the effect that you want. You can go and buy a sheet. I mean, green screens are not that expensive. There's all different kinds of ones available. I show that a little more in the advanced piece. I give some examples. So Kathy has no emojis. It's possible when I set this one up, I didn't allow them. So it's something that I, the host, controls. So I apologize if it's not there. Nancy wants to know, is it safe to publish the Zoom link on LinkedIn or Facebook? So when you publish a link, when you create something that says register, there's a registration link. You can publish that on Facebook or LinkedIn. Then it takes them to the registration page where they can register. That way you can see who's registered, and at you pre-meeting you can say, I don't know who these people are, I don't want them there. but it also then, once they've registered, you've captured their email address, and then you can be aware of that, have the co-host yourself be aware of it, that these people I'm sure of, keep an eye on them when you're in the meeting. So it's up to you if you want to post the password on a text thread. We have a networking meeting that's coming up today where we sent out the registration. We sent out, it's not a registration, anyone can get on it. We sent them the information on we posted on our Facebook group, and as they registered and said they were interested, we told them to also private message us, and we would send the individuals the password. So just so you know who's getting it is all. I want to thank everyone who came today. And like I said, this was a brief basics, and we will be doing the Zoom Advanced. You can go to my page, my education page, and the links are there to register for these. I really appreciate your time. And if you have any extra questions, my email is virginia@weiskopfconsulting.com. You can just send me an email and I'll answer it. My phone number is right there too, 630-320-2992. And I will be sending out the slides to you tomorrow. So you can go back and look at them. But thank you and have a great day.